Hello everyone, this is Adam from Wrestle Inn, and joining me today for this very special interview is someone who has done it all in the world of professional wrestling. As a wrestler, trainer, commentator, promoter, magazine editor, t-shirt designer, and has also done lots of work behind the scenes. He's the person behind the Brian Pillman Memorial Shows, and someone who I will always associate with my hometown promotion, the HWA. That would be Les Thatcher. Les, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Always look forward to talking with you.
So, Les, one of the things I did want to talk to you about today was the HWA and the Brian Pillman shows. But before we get there, you've been in wrestling for over 60 years at this point, and pretty much done everything as I mentioned in my intro. So for those who may not be familiar with your career, can you give a brief summary prior to starting up HWA in the 1990s?
Oh, sure. Well, as you mentioned, I am a Cincinnati boy, and I actually look forward to trying, to be a professional wrestler. Probably around 10 years old, and of course back then it was a closed shop, and so I did some amateur wrestling around Cincinnati, the YMCA's. There was no amateur program in the high schools at that point. And, continued to try to find some place to break into the business. And it was a dead end, and, as far as talking to promotion there and so forth and so on. And then I opened a Wrestling Review magazine one day and saw that Tony Santos in Boston, Massachusetts was training young athletes who had an eye on career in professional wrestling. So I sent him a letter and got a trifold back, which I've hung on to all these years. And anyway, that was my contact. And so in February of 1960, I was 19 years old, I got on a Greyhound bus and went to Boston, Massachusetts, and started my training there in February of 1960. I had my first professional match July the 4th, 1960, so this July 4th will be my 61st anniversary. And so anyway, long story short, to catch you up, I had 20-year in-ring career, 1960 to 1980. Then in 1970, actually, by chance, I got filled in for a commentator that had to leave town in the Maritime provinces in eastern Canada in 1970, working for promoter Rudy Kay. And so that was the start of my broadcasting career. Once coming back to the States, I did some more broadcasting with the Crockett promotion, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. Also got started messing around with magazines there. 1972, had the idea for the T-shirts and the Briscoe Booster, Jack and Jerry Briscoe T-shirt artwork by Jerry Lawler was the first T-shirt on the market in professional wrestling. And did magazines for WWF, that was Vince Jr. before his dad was actually still running the main company.
Oh, wow.
And, and so anyway, did broadcasting with Atlanta and Knoxville, and worked Puerto Rico for Colón as doing the English translation. Worked in, different things, broadcasting and the magazines we talked about. Got involved in training in, 1992, and actually started HWA 2 years later, and then became a developmental territory for WCW in late 98, early 99. Mm-hmm. Then when Vince bought them out with WWF, and until 2001, and sold HWA in 2002. I got into just freelance training. Started Elite Pro Wrestling training with Harley Race and Ricky Steamboat that in 2003. And I guess we were the first guys that did multiple trainer big camps, 2 and 3 day camps, starting back then, and on and on and on and on, Robert.
So kind of one of my follow-ups to that, one of the things I do want to talk to you about, like I mentioned, is a lot of HWA and the Brian Pillman shows. But kind of what led you to starting up HWA and the Main Event Pro Wrestling Camp in Cincinnati?
Well, actually, I fell into I fell into a lot of things in the business, just by chance. But the training thing, I had moved home, and I came in off the road, left here in Knoxville, where I'm living currently, in 1985, came home to help my mom, and got involved in competitive bodybuilding myself and training bodybuilders, and was involved in doing that. And then I was given a call one day by Bob Harmon, who was the original Beautiful Bobby before Bobby Eaton, and is a Cincinnati boy as well. Okay. Started in the business a few years after me. Anyway, Bob called me and said this guy had a school for professional wrestlers, but he had an idiot, and that was Bob's expression, as a trainer. And if he didn't get somebody better and more knowledgeable, then he'd probably lose what he had. And I said, well, why are you telling me this? And he said, well, you're that guy. And I said, you're crazy. Because I had, it never cried. I find out later that I have done some training over the years. Jim Dillon credits me with, teaching him quite a bit, as does Scott Casey and a couple other guys over the years. But anyway, so he finally convinced me to go take a look at a show these guys were putting on the west side of Cincinnati, over, I forget where it was exactly right now. But it was my first experience with an independent show, and at the time I was also doing Smoky Mountain wrestling as well for Jimmy. And it's my first experience of seeing an independent wrestling show, and I thought, oh my God, my business has come to this. I was blown away. Horrified would be a good word, I guess. But anyway, in the course of watching this, I saw this one kid go out of the ring and grab a chair, and I could tell the way he was handling it that he didn't know what to do with it. And anyway, long story short, he ended up cold cocking his opponent, and it didn't knock him out, but rang his bell enough that one of the other kids had to go out and help him out of the ring. He was walking around in circles. Anyway, so I lean over to Bob Harmon, and the promoter was on the other side of Bob, and I said, my God, that kid doesn't know, has no clue with that chair. How long has he been wrestling? Bob leans over to the guy that owned the school, and Lee comes back to me and said, he's like been to 4 practices, and Jesus Christ, he doesn't have any business being in a match, never mind swinging a chair at somebody. So that kind of decided that I would try the training thing. So I trained for this guy for a while, and he was a con man, to be quite honest with you. But that's where the Northern Wrestling Federation originated. And Roger Ruffin came in when I tried to get a couple little shows in-house, had Roger come in to referee because I'd known him since he was 9 years old, my God, when he was actually coming around the matches with Les Ruffin. And, yeah. And so, anyway, the owner of the place and I had our disagreements, and so anyway, I left, and with another guy, we started HWA. Started the school. Actually, it was going to be, the Les Thatcher's Main Event Pro Wrestling Camp, and actually the HWA was the offshoot because we needed, we had to promote, because these guys, whoever you train, was going to need, some place to try what they were learning. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, of all the things I've done in the business, promotion is my least favorite, which doesn't mean I don't enjoy it or don't put my heart into it. It's just my least favorite. So anyway, but that's how it all began. It was basically getting away from what was, it's the NWF. It's Roger's company now, as a matter of fact. It hasn't been for years. But anyway, that's how it all started.
Okay, yeah, and I just saw actually the other day that the NWF is still, they just started running shows again in Covington at the baseball training center out there. I haven't had a chance to go check out one of their shows yet, but hopefully I'll be able to soon. So I received the Brian Pillman Memorial Show DVD the other day, and I was watching it, and I think it's just absolutely fantastic. It's so good to see that these old shows again, and it's, these were actually something I was afraid that were going to get lost to history. How did that project with you and Joe Dombrowski come together, with you putting together, getting these shows compiled?
Well, actually, Joe was just getting his feet wet as a play-by-play guy a number of years ago, and it was sending out, picked some people to send out, a link or a tape to, and get them critique, and I happened to be one of those guys, and I liked what I heard, because one of the things I find consistent and not good at a lot of independents is the guys doing play-by-play won't think they're Bobby Heenan or Jerry Lawler, and actually they're neither, and nor should they try to be. They actually be putting the matches over, and that's what Joe was doing. So anyway, and we hit it off, and with a friendship. So as I was getting ready to move down here in the spring of 2019, I was cleaning, going through the house and going through this and that. So finally I came across a bunch of stuff, and Joe and I had talked about it. He said, well, can I look through it? And I said, sure, because it was just tapes and disc and so forth that I collected over the years. So he came and got a bunch of it, and so we started looking at it. And first, actually, before the whole Pillman thing, was Wrestling in the Heartland, the Lost Developmental territory. It's HWA Volume 1, and that's a bunch of HWA shows, house shows. And Joe and I do the voiceovers there, and I kind of tell some of the inside stuff. He's doing more of the play-by-play, and there's a Volume 1 and a Volume 2. And it's got, a lot of guys before they were, stars. Cena, Nigel McGuinness, people like that, plus some major players in the business anyway. But so that's how it started. And he found, all these Pillman shows which were, except for some bootlegs that, got knocked out there over the years, had never seen the light of day. And, excuse me. So we got to talking about it, and I said, well, and they won't it because I don't have that kind of, I can't release them. It comes back to the Pillman family. So, of course, Brian Jr., I had met Brian Jr. right after he came out of Lanza School because, lived just across the river with his aunt, Linda. And, I'd known him, obviously, since he was, a child, and we were doing these shows. But, so Joe had finally got a chance to meet Junior, and they got talking about it and worked out those particular details. So, we put this whole thing together. And, of course, unless you were at those shows, it's all fresh. It's all brand new, basically, except now the Benoit Regal match from 2000, obviously, was on the Best of Benoit. Of course, that's off the market now, but
right.
that match is still out on on YouTube somewhere. But so anyway, it came down to us doing this. And the crazy thing is, running those shows, you're not actually sitting down and enjoying the evening. You're your concessions, merchandise, dressing room, here, there, the other place. And so as we're doing the voiceovers, and we're doing this the same way I mentioned the HWA, is I'm more or less telling the behind the scenes and how this match came about and so forth, so on. And Joe's doing more of the play-by-play. But as you know, you've watched part of it anyway.
Right.
And so I was seeing some of these matches for the first time myself. Damn, that's a good match. That's really cool, right? But anyway, the whole thing, I had no idea how it was going to take off. But, someone had said in a review on this that it had taken on a mystical, story behind the Pillman shows. And I guess it had in a way because, something special happened every damn year. I mean, if you were, for us anyway, of course, one of the big thing, the Benoit Regal matches, hell, I use it, Dr. Tom uses it, a bunch of guys use it as coaches as a training tool. But there's always something special about those shows, and naturally, the big thing is that the only place in the world you could see ECW, WCW, WWF,
I was actually at the 2000 Pillman show. I think I mentioned this when I emailed you to request this interview. I was actually at the Pillman 2000 show, and I remember that Benoit Regal match. And I saw that match. I was just floored at how good it was. And I was actually also on the floor, kind of meandering around in the crowd during the Just Incredible and Raven match. And they fought right next to me, so I might be on the tape. I'm not sure. I haven't quite got to that one yet.
Now you got to hit me up for your residuals, right?
No. Okay. So I do want to ask you about the Benoit Regal match. Do you think that match holds up today and has stood the test of time?
You are damn right, my friend. That match will hold up 50 years from now. If you're talking about professional wrestling.
Right.
If you're talking about a clown show or an acrobatic exhibition, no, it won't. But yes, damn right. It is two athletes in competition. And that's as simple and as complex at the same time as it can get, because you don't see a lot of two athletes in competition today. Mm-hmm. You see some wrestling. But not as much as you should. Yeah, I absolutely think it would hold up. Well, if you were there, then you must, Tom Pritchard and I, when we've done a lot of camps together, but we both say that when we're showing this, it kind of the goosebumps come back to us, because you had to be there to feel how that the crowd was building. And you were there. Yeah. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but really, some of the guys, the talent downstairs in the dressing rooms could hear. Well, I started back by the sound people, by where the sound guys were doing the audio, kneeling down in front of their table, and I could feel this thing. I knew what was going to happen. I knew where they were going. I could feel the crowd too. Been doing this too long not to, and I wanted to be a part of it. Of course, can't be in the match. But if it's your promotion, you can go any damn place you want. And as you know, I ended up at ringside. Kneeling down by the ring. And because I knew this was going to pop, but the boys downstairs were coming up. And a couple of the guys told me that they're over there by the dressing room door, pushing and shoving each other to get a better look.
Really?
Yeah. If you're entertaining the boys, you're entertaining the people. But yeah, it's a great match. Well, you got two damn great athletes. Exactly. It's a lot of people. Some people before the show, when they started to we started to put the card together, asked me, "Why are you doing Regal and Benoit?" I said, "Bring pencil and paper. You're going to school." And they did.
Yeah. No, that is no doubt about that, actually. And then you also mentioned that the Pillman shows, they featured WWF, WCW, and ECW talent. Was it hard to get talent from the three major organizations involved?
Well, let's start back at the beginning. Obviously, I just came up with the idea to do a little, operative word here, little show to honor Brian Pillman and his death. So we checked in with Norwood High School, and they were willing to let us use their junior high school gym where Brian went to school, played ball. And so we just started kind of putting it together. Obviously, there's a lot more independent guys on that first show. But anyway, we ended up getting Benoit and Jericho for for one match. And then obviously Austin was coming because he had been Brian's partner. They weren't letting him wrestle because he was such a hot property at the time, but that was cool. Right. And Sonny, right? So I was talking to Dave Meltzer, and he said, if you had somebody at VCW, you'd have the big three. And it hadn't crossed my mind necessarily at that time. Like I say, it was a little show, right? So I didn't know. At that point, I had not met Paulie. But of course, Candido and I had a relationship from Smoky Mountain. So I got in touch with Chris, and he got in touch with Paul. And Al Snow was over there instead of WWF at the time, and just lived up a couple 100 miles up the road from Cincinnati. And so we ended up with Chris and Al as well. So we hit the trifecta. And it just kind of fell into place. But we had no idea what this thing was going to draw. None. away over 400 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the demand for photos with the stars was Al, Candido, Sonny, Benoit, Jericho, and Austin. And we had so many people lined up for that, is that group of talent, after the show, we had to get the show on, which, because we were running behind a little bit.
Right.
And so they stayed after the show to finish out the VIP, on the photos. But it started to drizzle rain before earlier in the afternoon, and I thought, oh man, but we had people lined up around the building in that drizzling rain to get into the damn place. So we put about 1,300 people in there that first show, and like I say, we had no idea what it was going to be. And I got home, got about 2 hours sleep, back to start taking people to the airport, finishing up. And then I sat down at my desk at the gym, and as half asleep as I was, and tired because, my day had started about 5 a.m. the day before, and I got about 2 hours sleep the night of the show. Anyway, I'm sitting there thinking, we did something special. I'm not sure why or how, but we did something special. Should we try to do this again? Can we improve it? So that's, in other words, when they did the first show, there was never an idea of a second or a third or a fourth. I mean, that just happened. So it just grew from there. And of course, then it did take on mythical proportions. I had guys, excuse me, starting with the second one, and then on, it was crazy. But I had independent guys from all over the country calling, offering to work for nothing. I mean, everybody did work for nothing, right? But it was, I'll pay my own, I'll do this, I'll do that. Actually, I had guys offering to pay to work on the show. That's how hot inside the industry itself that it got, And you were there. You were a witness at 2000.
Right.
Did you see any wrestlers dogging it or phoning it in?
No, not at all. No, everybody was maximum.
Yeah, that was the thing. To me, it was so beautiful because these guys were giving up their day off to be home with their families, or sleeping, or drinking beer and fishing if they wanted, whatever, right? And we took care of the hotel and fed them. And picked them up at transportation to and from the airport. These respective companies paid for the plane fare. But nobody phoned it in. I mean, everybody busted their ass. And the matches were good. There was I think that little underlying competition thing between my promotion, my brand and your brand and so forth. But everybody had a great time. And everybody just busted their hump to work, Right. Well, you saw the Raven Incredible match, and PJ Incredible caught hell because he got juice, if you remember. He got blood.
That's right, yeah.
And they used the table without even knowing they were going to use the table, but it wasn't set up to break, and so they took a hard bump. But anyway, the point is, PJ Incredible got juice, and Paul, they were working some big angle where he was going to have to do that like the next night or so, and Paul really climbed on him, and PJ said, well, damn, you should have been there. Benoit, what the hell, we had to do something, But, we had the cream of the crop, right? Am I right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Every show, I think, had major, they had major stars on it, or you had major stars on it. Benoit.
And then at 2000, we had the Cincinnati Reds as a guest referee, or remember Danny Graves did the D'Lo head bobbing thing going to the ring with D'Lo.
Right.
So, yeah. And then the auctions. Well, here's the other thing. I'll tell you the truth. To me, the ideal show runs about 2.5 hours. That's what I try to keep my, my HWA shows at. And over the years, that's pretty much what, when I was wrestling in the ring, they wanted to keep it at. But the point I was going to say, that like that last year, the fourth year, 2001, photos of the stars, and at this point we had a dozen stars posted for photos, started at noon in the building. Okay, then the independent showcase started at 5, and it went till like 7. We took a 15-minute break, and the main show, which was with the guys from the main 3 big rosters, came back at 7:15, and then during that period of time, we had presentations, we had auctions, we had raffles. My God. And people stayed, you know, and we were never out there before 11 o'clock at night. I mean, and I don't think anybody went home early. I mean, there was something going on all the time. I'll tell you the truth. I was so proud of the talent, the volunteers, the people behind us, the committee that helped me with that thing every year. We started committee meetings 7, 8 months out every Monday night at the gym, you know, to get this whole thing put together. So, yeah, but it was, I'm proud of what everyone that worked and what their shows became. Yeah, it just labor of love, believe me.
So, do you think that in today's wrestling landscape, Les, that there's the possibility to see shows like that again, where all the major companies come together for a common cause?
I doubt it. And I think that only happened there because Brian had transcended the 3 companies, actually almost with everybody think it was okay, right? Well, he was supposedly wasn't under contract to WCW, right?
Right.
And they thought he was coming back so he could work free at, you know, this and so forth. So I think that's part of it too. And I also think, when Benoit and Regal were committed to come work, then there was no way that WWF could say Steve, especially since they'd been partners, couldn't come. And you know, and then once Paulie signed off on it, I think that was part of it too. You know, and I won't say egos, but well, that company's doing it. We're going to look damn bad if we don't, right? So we got the cooperation. And I'm going to say this on my own behalf. I feel good that the 3 big companies trusted me enough to take their talent, mix them up, and not screw over somebody, right? Or give somebody more publicity than I gave somebody else. So I feel good about that because they trusted me with that.
Okay. So, watching these, I noticed that most of these shows took place at either local high schools or college campuses. Something I'm very curious about is that the 1999 show took place in the Cincinnati Gardens, a place that's, you know, very rich in wrestling history, going back through the years. Jim Barnett, I think, first promoted that in the 50s and 60s, going through, you know, the Sheik's territory.
Actually, back in the 50s, it wasn't the Sheik's territory at the time. It was Barnett's.
Right. Yeah.
And I bought tickets there, and then I wrestled there for Barnett as well.
So how is it running a show at such a historic venue?
Oh, it was great. Well, and I'll tell you why we went there. After the first show at the junior high school gym, and of course starting then the plan almost the very next day, I'm thinking, okay, if we can get Austin now. Realize Austin was the big guy with Vince at the time. Flair was the big guy with WCW. And I'm thinking, if I can get the 2 of those guys, Cincinnati Garden will work, right? So that's one of the reasons we went to the Garden. And the people at the Garden, you know, joined in and cut us a nice deal too. And they handled the ticket sales there. Which I'll tell you the truth, that first year, not realizing what we had, you know, in front of us, we handled the ticket sales from the HWA office, and they about drove us nuts.
Oh, really?
Right with that. Oh yeah. So shows 2, driven us really crazy then. But yeah, those were all hard work. They were. I mean, I'd be lying to say they weren't. But again, a labor of love. I felt so good at the end of those things, and so proud of the way this 4-disc set has obviously jumped. It's held. Joe is shipping to Europe and Asia and all over North America. And my God, I thought. But then we got to thinking about it. People have heard talk about it for how many years?
Exactly.
Right. And if you didn't go to one of the shows like you did, you haven't seen. All this is fresh footage. And of course, the 2001 show. I wasn't sure about this until just recently, that Mike Johnson at PW Insider and Joe got to look at. But in 2001, the first ever single match between John Cena and Randy Orton took place at Pillman 201.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, they hadn't been up to the main roster at that point. They had been in a tag match a couple weeks previous to that, but that night was the first time they ever had a single match.
Wow. Because I've only gotten up to, I've watched 98, I've only gotten to 99. I haven't watched 2000 and 2001 yet, but that's something I'm definitely going to watch out for when I watch those shows.
And we're talking about special thing, Mark Curtis, probably the last big shows of any consequence he worked might have been Pillman 99. Really? Oh, yeah. He had stomach cancer. That's how he passed away. Yeah. But leading up to they had put a port in. He was feeding through a port. And so a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks maybe before 99, we're at the gym, and Pam, his wife, called and said, I want to let you know, we're taking Brian to the hospital. His weight's been dropping. We want them to give him, some, special nourishment, whatever, get his weight back up before he drops too much. He's behind her. You could see yelling, "Tell Les, I'll be at the Pillman show. I'm working Pillman show. I'll be there." And I said, "Tell the old bastard to go to the hospital and get it well." And I love. Right. I mean, my God, he named a cat after me. How could I not love it? Exactly. But yes, he did. But anyway, so he was having trouble then. So anyway, he had wanted to manage. He had wanted to referee the main event, which was Mysterio and Conan against Benoit and Malenko. And I'm thinking, man, that's going to be pretty physical. So I'm going to have you referee. I didn't tell him till he got there, but I said I had Dr. Tom and Terry Taylor in what I called Legends match, and I knew they were going to work more a basic wrestling match, right? So it wouldn't be as taxing physically on him, because he had lost a lot of weight. He was way down. But he was that tough son of a gun, believe me. I mean, he was fighting at every step of the way. So anyway, this day of the show, I'm doing ring announcing in 99. And so he gets, he referees Tom and Terry's match. And so I'm out to do ring announcing for the main event. And I'm waiting for the first team to come. And here comes Mark Curtis. And I thought, whoa. So he gets in the ring, and I walked. I said, what are you doing? I'm a referee. I said, Mark, you sure you can do this? I can do it. He said, are you going to stay out here and watch the match? And I said, yeah. He said, well, if I can't make it, you can throw me over your shoulder and carry me back, can't you? I said, I sure can. So we went on, and he refereed the match.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I did not know that was the first, or the first show, the last show that he had worked before he got sick.
Yeah, and then in 2001, Malenko announced his retirement at Pillman 01.
Really?
Yeah.
That's something I wasn't aware of either.
Yeah, when you see that's in the extras, and when you see that, you'll see my mouth hanging open, because I had no idea, and I was going to do something with him, some little human interest thing, and he made his announcement, and I'm standing there looking at him like, huh? Okay.
So, I mentioned I went to the Pillman show in 2000, but after that, my first actual kind of real exposure to HWA was the TV that you had on Fox 45 in Dayton during the time HWA was developmental territory for the WWF. So
yes, sir.
You mentioned this earlier. How did HWA become affiliated with the WWF as a developmental territory?
Well, to start with, a lot of the people that I wrestle with or know from my wrestling career or career in the territories were in management in both WWF and WCW. Mm-hmm. And initially in 98, I was first contacted by WWF, and Bruce Pritchard stopped by. Yeah, Bruce had been down in Louisville, down at OVW, and he came by, and we went to lunch, and they made an offer, but we didn't have anything in contract or anything, and so we were kind of figured we're going to do business, and so he went back, and then the wheels of corporate America, I guess, started to turn, but they were turning very slow, and one thing and another. So anyway, I get a phone call from Gary Juster, who's in WCW, and he said, "Les, have you signed with WWF?" And I said, "No." Are you? I said, I haven't even seen a contract yet. Gary, oh my God! He said, "I think they're reading our mail because JJ and I were just talking about you." And the same thing. So he said, "We're gonna, we want you to come down." So they sent me a plane ticket and had me picked up at the airport. Brought me down, introduced me around, sat down, and said, "What do you, what would be ideal for you in this situation?" And I told them, and they said, "Well, then let's do it." So I signed with them first, and that's why we moved up to the bigger facility. Mm-hmm. And so then, obviously, at the time, I had no idea what their financial arrangements were. I don't read their profit and loss sheets, right. And they didn't offer them. So, I had no idea, how quickly they would be headed south financially, and of course they were, burning money there, from what I understand it, toward the end. So they needed to start, the whole corporate thing, getting rid of some of that expense. And since I was one of the newer guys that I got rid of, they canceled the contract. So, but then I also was able to heard from JR, and he knew that the deal in Memphis was not working out like it was supposed to. Okay. And he said, "We've got a deadline on that." He said, "Just hold tight. Once we pull the plug on Memphis, we're in business." So that's the way that worked. Okay. I had worked with, realize this, so, I mentioned when we're talking about magazines, mm-hmm. I did a WWF magazine for Vince back in the late 70s, early 80s. I did 5 issues of that magazine for WWF Wrestling Action magazine. That's floating around out there somewhere, too. So I've known Vince since 77 or 78, I don't remember. But anyway, mm-hmm. So I had done business with him before, and he offered in 85, they flew me up when George Scott was the booker. George and I had worked extensively together in television promos and that sort of thing with Crockett. And anyway, they brought me up, and they offered me a real nice position there with WWF in 85. Yeah, to handle all the promos. At the time, all those promos, it's like, they were on the road, and they had soundproof tents that they would set up in the arenas, and under the grandstands, obviously, in the bowels of the arena. And that's where they did a lot of the promos. So anyway, George Scott and I had worked together like that extensively in Charlotte. So, and Vince and I had worked together on the magazine. So, they made me a real good offer. It's just that I wasn't in a position at that point, to live in Stanford, because my dad hadn't passed away too long before that, and I wasn't while I was here in Knoxville at the time, I was 4 hours from my mom. Stanford would have been crazy, and then those guys were on the road up there sometimes 10 days at a stretch, right?
Right.
And so, anyway, and plus I had another commitment at the time. I was doing, trying to help put together a weekly television magazine, which I had a piece of, so I couldn't accept the offer. But it was, I mean, the salary was good, plus it was health insurance and et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, Vince and I have always, I mean, do we always agree? Oh, obviously not, but I've always had a good relationship with Vince since the 70s. And so, yeah, so that was, they had offered me that then, so we worked together in the, experienced each other before I ever went there as a trainer.
Okay. So, you know, I noticed that, you know, watching those shows, I actually have the entire run of that series on tape here. So watching that, you know, I noticed like the episodes kind of end right around late summer 2002. Is that when HWA was no longer a developmental territory for WWF?
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah, that's well, see, there again, that was about stockholders. There's the problem with being with corporations, right? So, but no, I was told, JR, I was told when that came down, this is nothing you didn't do or nothing you did do. This is about appeasing the stockholders. Well, at the same time, they had let office workers and the tower, plus some more talent, you know, on the main roster go as well. But the whole idea, and it was working well with OVW and us just 100 miles apart, because, you know, I had their guys who work my shows, my guys who work their shows. That's where we did our TV, and Danny did the editing right out of the OV. You know, he had all the equipment right there, and we were all, you know, in the system together. So, and I was the newest of the two developmental, and I think they'd let me go anyway if I wasn't, because they had made a loan to Danny so he could move into a bigger and better facility. So they obviously had reason to keep him, you know, business-wise, right. Which is cool. I mean, you know, business is business.
Right. So what led you to ultimately stepping away from HWA?
Well, when you own a business, you're never away from it, even if you are away from it.
Right.
And had been doing it for 10 years, had done well, and it was just, it was a long haul. Now, at the early 2000s, Harley Race and I had started doing training camps at the Cauliflower Alley Convention in Vegas, right? Mm-hmm. And so then Harley started doing his week-long NOAA tryout camps in Eldon, Missouri at his school. And so he and I and Ricky Steamboat worked together there, and we just clicked. So we decided to do what we called super camps, like 2- and 3-day weekends for the three of us to run training camps, right? And together. And in fact, there's a book out. The Professional Wrestlers Workout and Instructional Guide by Sports Publications LLC. It's out of print now, but it's out there on Amazon, I know. Anyway, so we were going to do that. So, and it started out really good. And so the wife and I are thinking, okay, she has her retirement, and I'm getting ready to start Social Security, and if we can get 1 or 2 of these camps a month, and so, hey, we're working less. We don't have to worry about the building and the sewer and this and that and the other thing. So, so I had a decent offer, and we were able to work something out and make the transition. So we decided to do that. Of course, then the economy went to hell in a handbasket a year or so later, so it wasn't such a great idea after all. But it panned out all right. But yeah, it was. And the other thing is, I didn't know where was I going to go in terms of up from there.
Right. I mean, you can't get much better than HWA, honestly. HWA.
No, I think during our at our peak, one of the top three independent promotions in the country. Period. End of story.
Right, and I would agree with that wholesale.
Yeah.
So, kind of talking about HWA, they did have several homegrown stars. One person I do want to ask about you in particular, though, is Jon Moxley. So, I remember seeing him in 2004 at a show at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds, where he was part of a tag team where he was a football player. I can't remember the name of the team.
Yeah, that's what I can't either. But yeah, well, that's John started. Well, that's like L.A. Knight or Sean Ricker.
Right.
They both started when and Carl Anderson when I had the company, and then Carl had a concussion and left, and then he didn't come back. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I mean, it wasn't ever a problem. That's the way it worked out. But Sean and John, obviously they're guys who were training there. I wasn't going anywhere that they could go with me anyway. So they stayed with the company. So, I remember the football thing. That was crazy. But, I worked with him on and off. And then, I forget what, don't ask me the year because I couldn't tell you if you held a gun to my head right now. But anyway, I decided to go over and help out. And I was going to work with the advanced guys on Wednesday nights. Mm-hmm. And so John started showing up on Wednesday nights, and then we got to talking. And when Mike Bootsy had been an agent with WWE, he had told Moxley if he put some size back on, they might give him a tryout. But then Mike had left the company. So John or anybody with that he was working with at the time didn't have any connections. So we sat down and talked about it, and I got him on a diet and started looking at his tapes, and of course he was working with me in there on Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. And that's, I say I helped train him, but I more or less took the rough edges off to get him ready. And then once we got the diet worked out and he put some weight on, I picked up the phone and called Dr. Tom, and I said, hey, that's somebody for you to look at. So that's how that all came about.
Is that how he kind of got started through the independents, like, CZW and all that sort of thing?
Yeah. And then I worked with him, too, when I did a couple of camps for CZW in Philadelphia for DJ Hyde, the owner. And John was up there then, and Sammy Callahan and Adam Cole. And I worked with Cole since he was green as grass up there the first time we worked together.
I didn't know you worked with Adam Cole.
And Drew Gulak, yes, sir.
Wow.
Worked with Drew as well.
I'll have to get you back on to tell some Adam Cole stories.
I don't know any wild stories about him. I know he's a hell of a good guy and hell of a talent too.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic in NXT. He's one of the best people they have down there.
Yeah.
So another person I did want to ask you about is Nigel McGuinness. So my first, besides those TV episodes I mentioned, I remember seeing Nigel McGuinness at Middletown High School at the summer of 2002. And he was carrying an iron with him. It had the Union Jack painted on it. So
he was the Iron Man.
The Iron Man, yes, that's right. That's right.
You know what? They asked me, and it didn't show up on his biography thing that they did in WWE, but they had asked me, and I said, he was the Iron Man. Well, why'd you let him do that? I said, a lot of the things I do in the business is by feel, or by my gut, I guess you'd say, right?
Right.
And I knew how serious Nigel was, and I knew the iron wasn't going to be a stupid gimmick like about 99% of the gimmicks I see today. And I had to throw that in. I'm sorry, Rob.
Oh, you're fine.
And so I just let him do it. No, I'm going to tell you what. Nigel, to me, I hold him up to anybody that says, well, this is inconvenient. Don't talk to me about inconvenient. Here's the story of Nigel McGuinness.
Okay.
Nigel was up at Kent State as an exchange student, getting in next to his last year of college. Mm-hmm. And he was riding around looking for a wrestling school. And he sent me a letter, and I sent him a brochure back. And what attracted him most, he tells me, is that I had handwritten quite a bit on the brochure about, blah, 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 whatever. I'm not sure what I wrote. But that was one of the things, because everybody else had just sent a piece of paper saying, this is what it cost, or something,
Mm-hmm.
And so he and a couple of his classmates came down and looked at the school. And it's crazy, but when we got in the ring, we were going to, I'm just going to let him get in the ring and, show him a lockup and that sort of thing. You just feel the energy coming off of him. He was in a wrestling ring, right?
Right.
So his college buddies took pictures and the whole thing. So he said, I've got one more year in university back in England, and I'll be back to train with you. And, of course, if everybody came to train with me, was going to train with me, I'd be a wealthy man and retired, living in a castle in Bermuda or some damn place. But I'm not, and they're not either. So anyway, but he, here he came. But here's the thing. He could only get a 6-month visa.
Mm-hmm.
So he would come and train for 6 months, go back to England. I know at one point back there he was working double shifts at a restaurant, sleeping on a mattress on a buddy of his kitchen floor, and until he could get another visa to come back.
Wow.
And some guys think, oh my God, that's 20 miles from where I live. He's crossing the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
And and some people ask me, well, how did he get so good? I said, he shut up and he listened. That's how he got that. And he did what he was asked to do. He was dedicated, and he is. I'm so proud of him. And I was hired to pick out talent and book a year-long tournament in Los Angeles by a promoter out there in 2012-13.
Mm-hmm.
And Nigel still lives out there, but anyway, he got involved, and he was my assistant, and it was just such a pleasure to work with him. He and I have gotten together. He's more like family, honestly, and I'm so proud of him. I mean, and as a wrestler, damn, if he wasn't talented, I don't know who was. I mean, he was just a hell of a hand, and I love him. He's a hell of a gentleman and a talented professional.
Right, and he's a fantastic announcer as well, or commentator. His work on NXT UK is just it's phenomenal. It really is.
It's funny. I teased him about it. I said, just trying to copy me step for step, right? And we worked the last time that Greg Price did a big Charlotte NWA Mid-Atlantic Fan Fest.
Mm-hmm.
Nigel, myself, Lance Storm, Tom Pritchard, and Rip Rogers did a 3-day training camp and a couple shows for that thing. And he impressed Jerry Briscoe the way he handled guys training as well. So Nigel's a hell of a talent, and he has a legitimate, serious love and passion for the business. And everybody says that when they come to you. That's their stand. I love it. It's all I ever wanted to do till I get tired and sick and sore, and maybe that's not what I wanted to do. But yeah, he's hell of a talent and part of my extended family as far as I'm concerned.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. So, Les, what do you feel is the lasting legacy of HWA? And then I'll extend that same question to the Brian Pillman Memorial shows as well.
I think it should be a positive thing. I think HWA was the best, biggest, most talented independent promotion in that part of the country, and probably, like I said, probably one of the top 3 in the country. Period. During its best years, I'm very proud of it, and proud of the guys that came out of there. Proud of being, part of two major corporations, developmentals. Mm-hmm. And the Pillman, I think the way these things are selling kind of speaks for it. I'm proud, like I said to you earlier, I'm so proud of the volunteers, of the wrestlers, of everybody, that was so, the shows are special. As you went to one and you know how special that was.
Exactly. And
as you watch those discs that you have, I think you'll see that they're all pretty damn special.
No, they are. They are. They're so special and they're so amazing to watch. So, Les, as we start to wrap up here, there's one thing we like to ask everyone at the end of every interview we do here at Wrestle Inn. So, you have a table at Wrestle Inn. What meal are you eating? What are you drinking? And which two wrestlers are you bringing for company?
What am I eating and drinking?
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know. I'm not a gourmet by any stretch. Wow, what am I eating? You know what? A young, well, not really, very young, but a couple that are like family to me just got married, and they were down here. We had a combination of steak and shrimp, so I'll go with that for a meal. Mm-hmm. And for me, I like Diet Coke. If I've got to have an adult beverage, it would be either Coors Light or a rum and Coke or bourbon and Coke, I suppose. And who would I have with me?
Yeah, who would you have for company?
Wow, I'd love to have my mom and dad back. How's that?
That'll work. So, Les, thank you for joining me here today at Wrestle Inn. Just as a brief reminder to everyone, you can purchase the Brian Pillman Memorial Show anthology DVD at pillmanshow.com. You can catch Les along with Vic Sosa as part of the Wrestling Weekly Show at WrestlingObserver.com. And you can also follow Les on Twitter at Les Thatcher. Before we go, Les, is there anything else that I missed that you'd like to mention?
Well, you forgot send me money. No, I'm teasing about that. Yeah, I still do seminars and weekend training camps too. If you're interested in that, if you're listening to this and happen to be a promoter, you can reach me, LesThatcher28 at gmail.com. Be more than happy to get you that information. And we were talking about the HWA, the Lost Developmental tapes. Volumes 1 and 2, those are also available at joe-dombrowski.com and prowrestlinglibrary.com. And the Pillman, if you don't get it at BrianPillmanShow.com, you can get it at those other two addresses as well. But yeah, those HWA, there's a lot of stars and guys, Cena and Nigel and a bunch of the guys who were on there before they were stars too. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for going down memory lane with me.